Hi, in this video we will have a look at the inventory component, the item collections and item restrictions. First of all, we'll have a look at the demo scene, player character inventory. The player character inventory has 3 item collections: main, equipped and debug loadout. The item collections are used to organize your items within an item inside an inventory. So an item collection has a few options. The first one is a name, which can be used to get this item collections from other scripts. We have a collection, which is the collection type. The basic type is an item collection, but you can also have item slot collections, which allows you to specify a subset, so you only have a set of slots where items can be added. An item transaction collection, which is used to pass through items to different item collections. So for example, if you want item collections only for your weapons and then another one only for armor, then you could use an item transaction where you will give any type of items and then the item transaction collection will just pass it through to whatever item collection you want. Then you have a multi-stack item collection, which allows you to have multiple stacks of the same item within the same item collection. So for example, if you have some ammo and the stack size is 30, then you can have multiple item stack of ammos, all of 30 and more. Then we have the purpose, which can be set to any of these values. Usually it is either a main purpose or an equip purpose, or if you want to hide it, then you can hide it right here. Then usually if you're not sure what to set as the purpose, then you should probably set it to none and then get the item collection by name instead of by purpose from other scripts. Another option you have is the overflow options, which allows you to define what happens if there's no space for your item. So you can say to return the item where it came from. If it didn't came from anywhere, then it would just disappear. You can send or listen to an event, which is an event through code, or you can use an overflow action. An overflow action is basically similar to an item action, which defines what happens when the item overflows. You can create one simply by right-clicking, pressing create, ultimate inventory system, item overflow actions, and then here we have an item overflow action with item action. Note that you can create your own item overflow actions through script also. And this, what it does is simply pass in the item that has overflown to an item action, which can be anything you want. The usual use case for an item that overflows is simply to drop it. So here we have a droppable item action, and what it will do is it will drop the item. There you go. You probably want to, if you use the droppable item action, then you'll probably want to remove the remove on drop, otherwise the item might be removed twice, if that's the case. Let's go back here, demo, and remove this item overflow action. If we go back here, we've seen that we can set these options. Then we have some options specific to the type of item collection you choose. In the case of an item slot collection, then you can define the item slot set, which defines what slot set you have for this item collection. In the demo scene, we've set here this slot set, which has a right hand, a head, a chest, and legs slots, and each simply have a name and an item category. So the items that will be able to be set in this item collection will only be able to be set one item per slot. You also have a new item priority, which tells you that if you add an item on top of an existing item, then the new item will take priority over the last one or the old one, and the old one will be removed. If you press this button here, then the item that was just removed will try to be added to where the new item came from, which can be quite useful. These are usually the settings you'll be choosing from, and what you can do with an item once you have added it to an item collection. You can try to change those values right here. So you can simply press plus to add a new item. You can add items very easily simply by clicking on them, and then if you want to remove them, you click and press minus. You'll find a few settings here, or details about the item. So for example, the item name, the item ID, the category, and the item definition. A useful trick here is if you press on these buttons or the little icons, it should open the inventory editor. There you go. So we have here the inventory editor. We can check the bag item and you'll see all those attributes that you can change. In the case of certain items, for example, if we go back to the main equipped and we choose the wooden sword has item attributes which can be edited directly inside the inspector. So for example, we have an attack here of 5 and we could set this to 10, and then you'll see that now our wooden sword is a custom wooden sword, which is unique, of course, because of the category, and it is mutable, which means that it can change at runtime, and then now has a value of 10. It is recommended to only change values inside the inspector for unique and mutable items. You should not change these values for some or for immutable items and common items. For example, the wood, you would not change the values right here. Otherwise, this item would be the only one having this ID, while all the other wood items will share the same ID and share the same item reference, basically. Now we've seen how to add and remove items. You can change the amounts, of course, right here. And the neat trick with these things is that you can change them at runtime. So for example, if I press play, and I open the inventory, we see here that I have some items. For example, in the materials, I'll go to my main item collection, I press plus, and I'll put some items, and you'll see that they all appear right here. So of course, if I press, for example, bigger potion, they won't appear because it is a consumable item. So I'll see them in the other category, or other tab, sorry. You can remove items, and they'll remove also. So that's basically an introduction to the inventory component and the item collections. We'll now have a look at the item restrictions. As I mentioned previously, item restrictions are used to limit the items that can be added to item collections. By default, an item collection has a limitless amount of items that can be added and any stack size amount. An item restriction is a class or object that inherits the item restriction interface. So if we check out in the code, we'll see that this is the interface, which has an initialize function, a can add function, and a can remove function. If we check out the inheritors, we'll see that we have 8 different classes which can be used to limit what items are added to the inventory. The most used one is an item restriction set object, which can be set directly here. If we check it out, this one from the demo scene, we'll see that it is simply an object which has one element, which is in restriction. The great thing about the atom restriction set is it allows you to combine multiple types of restrictions into one. So you can have a stack size restriction, multiple category restriction, multiple stack amount restrictions, and even the group item restriction. The group item restriction shouldn't be used. It is here for legacy reasons only. So all the things that you could do previously with the group item restriction, you can now do them with all three of those by combining them. If you want to create your own item restriction set, simply right click, create Ultimate Inventory System, and then you should be able to find your restriction set right here. Item restriction set. Then you can add restrictions and define them exactly as you wish. Usually you define a item collection array where you can define what arrays are affected by this restriction. So we could say main, for example, and then we could say what categories are allowed, what categories are not allowed, etc. You can create your own restriction simply by inheriting this class right here, or this interface. As you saw, here we have 8 classes, and here we only have 4. And the reason for that is because some of the restrictions are mono behaviors, which means that they are components that can be added on a game object. One of the more popular ones is the dynamic inventory size, which allows you to set a size for the max amount of item stacks that you can have in inventory, and then it can change at runtime automatically with a bag item or through code by changing the base max stack amount. There is a feature scene under demo featured scene here, dynamic inventory size, which has some restrictions on how to set it up, and you can also check the documentation. So we've now seen how to add some restrictions, how to set it up, and how item collections work, and how to use the inventory. I hope this video was useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.